Okay, student support and community. So, um, uh, the biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges, I think, for online learning as a whole is this question of community. I know a lot of people struggle with online classes. It's something, it's one of those things, whenever you have a particular job or you're in a particular field and you tell people, like at a cocktail party or something, what you do, and you get used to like the one or two things that random people almost always say in response to whatever you do. Like when I used to just say I'm an English professor, you could always count like 75% of the people that you were talking to would immediately make some crack about like, oh, I better make sure to be careful to use proper grammar, which is kind of silly. But anyway, when I talk about like, oh, I run an online program, the thing that people say to me a lot is, oh, I tried online education, it doesn't work for me. And I have found that a really kind of fascinating comment, and it's usually not socially appropriate for me to probe very deeply into that comment, but when I have sort of carried on those conversations a little bit further, the primary thing that I find from people who find that online education doesn't work for them, apart from the fact that obviously they haven't tried Signum University, is that basically for most people in most places and at most schools, online education is mostly independent learning, right? I mean, it's a lonely world and there's very little peer support. There's very little contact with faculty and there's very little peer support. You're just kind of on your own and you've got to go through. And this is why, I mean, one of the things that I find kind of sad when I'm looking, like when I'm online and I'm seeing banner ads for, for online schools, which since I do a lot of web searching for stuff related to online schools, I get a lot of banner ads about online schools. And when I do, I find that so many of them, they don't talk about learning. They don't talk about courses. They don't talk about stimulating programs. They talk about getting a degree, right? Like they brag about how quick it is to get a degree. Come here and get your degree in less than a year. Which is cool, I guess. I mean, if all you want is a degree for a practical reason, like you need a degree in order to get a promotion, so you push the button and you get a degree and you get a promotion. I guess like that's cool. I have no problem with that. But anyway, it's just like I said, it's sort of a lonely world. Signum's always been different. I mean, I talked about this before about where Signum started and how our focus has always been on connecting people, and yet, to this point, our focus has really mostly been on connecting teachers and students, right? That is, the focus has been on establishing connections pedagogically. But we haven't really been able to focus much on peer support, on student community. Now, the student community within our program has been wonderful, far beyond the norm for an online institution. The way in which people have been able to connect to each other. I mean, like I know the sort of the Mythgard Signum Facebook community. I am aware that there is this Mythgard Institute Facebook group, which I have deliberately never joined because I didn't want people to feel self-conscious. I was happy to know that there was this place where people were like all together and talking. I know that that those are. That's been a really vibrant community, but not everybody has Facebook and not everybody knows about it. It's because it's not ever been an official, like that group has never been an official sort of an official Mythgard or Signum run program, so we don't really know. We can't direct students to it. Anyway, student community has been awesome. You guys have been awesome. I have gotten to know you guys really well. I know that you guys have really formed friendships within the Mythgard programs and within our Signum classes for many years. But we want to do more. We want to do more to really encourage and both to support our students individually and to encourage community among those involved in our program. I hope that people will feel at home here, will recognize that they're part of something really special. One thing that I also noticed in the cocktail party context is when people talk about doing online education, they don't say, I go to the school or I'm part of the school. They say, I took classes there. Right? Oh yeah, I took some classes, right? And I was like, that's so kind of sad, right? you think about the kind of identification that people have with, the undergraduate college that they attend, right? The sort of the lifetime affiliation that people so often feel with their schools. Online programs just do not invite. They don't even ask for. Some of them seem not even to want that kind of identification, that kind of community. I think we already have something pretty close to that, and that's something that I really want to that I really want to think about, that I really want to support. I want people to, as I said, I want people to feel at home here. I don't want our students to feel isolated and alone. They're on their own with their own computers at home, and what do they do? And they don't know, they don't know the ropes. And so I'm thinking, of course, obviously, especially of new students. I want our students to be able to be building connections and relationships, that last throughout life, just like, grad school is supposed to be, really. Now, the first goal that I had, the first thing that we want to do is to ensure that all of our students get the support and guidance that they need from us. That's one thing that we have made some progress towards improving over this past year, and that we are going to be increasing and improving as we move forward. Continuing to improve our orientation process so that students don't feel kind of at sea once they submit their application and get accepted. We're going to be doing much more with academic advising so that students will actually have someone assigned to them that they know is assigned to them, who will be helping to guide them through what do you need to do, how does the system work, how should you choose and plan your classes, what do you need to do to move forward towards your thesis. We're also going to be instituting what we're calling a mid-program review. When you're in the MA program, you're halfway through the MA program. We'll sort of meet with you to talk with you. What have you been thinking so far? As we're working towards the thesis and sort of seeing how things are going, and so again, that people are not just sort of feeling like I'm kind of making this up as I go along. I don't know what I'm doing, and of course the thesis advising. That's been another really positive change. I'm so grateful for the work that Serena Higgins, our new department chair, again, one of the changes that happened during this past year, for all the work that she's done with that, and I know that many of you who are beginning the thesis process or in the middle of the thesis process right now have been working with Serena Higgins as she's been helping you to both kind of being matchmaker to help you find a good advisor for your thesis and encouraging you through the process of coming up with your topic and thinking about that. So we'll be continuing that and doing more of that, but again, not just sort of suddenly at the end of the program, right? Congratulations, you've taken like 8 or 9 classes. Time to start thinking about your thesis. But again, really thinking about that stuff all the way through so that the whole program that you're involved in has a more cohesive feel. So again, it's not just the changes to the program. We're wanting to change the way that we interact and support our students through that. Sharon Hoff, our wonderful Dora Ward, is really at the helm of the new student support team that we are building. That is going to be really focused on helping those things happen and making sure to guide people through. But there's a second element here, and that is, as I said, not just academic support for students in our program, but to encourage greater interaction among our community. And for that, we have a new mechanism. I want to introduce another new thing, and that is the Signum University Community Hearth. Those of us who are coming up with this, we loved the idea, the image, the metaphor of the hearth. And I have to admit that I myself was always thinking of Bilbo fantasizing about being in his armchair next to his own fire at home with the kettle just beginning to sing. It is my hope that the Community Hearth of Signum University will be one on which the kettle is always just beginning to sing. A place where everybody can come together. The Community Hearth is going to be an online gathering place just for Signum folks. And I guess you guys who are our students here are part of something special. And we want you to know that you're part of something special. We want to give you a place where you can talk with other people who are also a part of that special thing, not just being involved in a more general sort of social media discussion, but to be coming to a place where you are here within our community. The mechanism that we currently have It might change someday as we get better software systems. But for now, we're going to be using our Moodle system for this. Moodle, of course, all of you are probably familiar with. This is our learning management system, to use the lingo of the field. Anyway, it's where our online course information is, and everyone who's taken a course with us has used this before. The Community Hearth. Now, the Community Hearth is just being set up. So if you go to your Moodle installation, you might not see it. You might not be in it yet. We're working on populating it and getting everybody plugged in where they should go. But I'm just going to show you a little bit about what it looks like so you can see the kinds of things that we're going to be doing. When you come to the Moodle page, you will see not only our language and literature classes, of course, of which there are many, and our new MA thesis courses, of which there are fewer but important, but you also see our Community Hearth entry and lots of subdivisions under that. I will talk about these here one by one. First of all, I want to give a shout out to two people. First, to Alyssa House-Thomas, who is the our assistant dean in the language and literature program, and she's of course also one of our eminent alumni of the program. One of those of you, again, of which I know there are many others here too, who are part of that original first class ever taken, ever offered here at Signum University. Anyway, so Alyssa, she's also now working as our Moodle admin. She's taking care of all the Moodle stuff. So thanks so much to Alyssa for figuring out this stuff. She and I have been playing that fun game, well, fun for me anyway, where I say, okay, this is what I want to happen. Can you please figure out a way to make that happen, right? And she's been wonderful about that. So thanks very much to her. But thanks also to another one of our illustrious alumni who has volunteered to come back, and basically she's going to serve as our Hestia of the Signum Hearth, who is going to be basically overseeing and organizing stuff, and sort of be there to welcome and connect people, and that is of course the incomparable Sparrow Alden, who is going to be working with us still, or again, or whatever it is. Anyway, so Sparrow is going to be our Hestia of the Hearth here in the Community Hearth, which I'm very grateful and excited for. Let me show you what exactly sort of what's going to be going on here in several different areas of the Community Hearth. First, these first two areas are just general hangout places. Everybody who's a part of the Signum community is going to be able to log in here. This is just where you're going to be able to meet people, get involved in discussions. Just general community hangout is what is what we're calling it here. Again, it was so important to me to have a forum, which is it has no distractions from outside, the Signum program. Again, not just part of general social media chatter, but is open to everybody in the Signum community, so that there's a place that everybody in the Signum community can go to, when they're feeling, lonely and isolated, and I'm here in this cold, heartless online education world. I want everybody to know that there's a place where you can go, and where there are others, and where you can meet and get to know people who are in the same program as you. We also have these specific student support areas, which are basically forums for much more specifically. So the student lounge, for people who are actually enrolled in our classes, especially all of our auditors and discussion auditors and credit students are able to be in this place. So basically, this is a place, the general community hangout, as I'm going to talk about later. There will be others besides our credit students and auditors who are going to be able to have access to that as well. The student lounge is really for people who are in our program talking about our courses. You want to kind of hang out with other students and ask questions about how things are going. You don't just want to, if you don't want to just kind of float that out in the general community hangout, you can go to the student lounge to meet other students enrolled like you in the program, and really talk about where you are and what you're thinking about. There's a forum for academic advising, and I want to make sure, if you have a question, right, you don't know what's going on, you're not sure what you should do, is there a strategy you should be taking, what's going to be happening. We want to make sure that there's a place where you can go, where you can post and get answers to that, and have discussions, get support both from your fellow students and from Signum academic advisors. And then finally, sort of most focusedly, the thesis support group. When you're working on your thesis, right, we want to have a place where people can go, well, okay, primarily to gripe and commiserate, because that's what people who are working on theses do, as I very well remember. But other things as well. So this is a place where you can be communicating with a thesis coordinator, again, where you can be supporting each other. There are others going through the same thing that you're going through. So we want to be able to enable you guys to contact each other. We also have some special interest discussion areas. So again, places that are sort of focused for, and one example that we've thrown out already, and we can create more. This is the kind of thing based on sort of interest and demand that Sparrow will coordinate. A creative writing group. A lot of our students are creative writers and have been really wanting to find a place where they can collaborate, put their work out there and have it read and commented on, and get involved in a supportive discussion. Certainly the Signum community is one where we hope that people will be able to kind of find each other and build a supportive community there. Before you ask, because I know some of you are going to ask, does this mean we are going to have a creative writing program? That is certainly on our list of goals. It's not going to happen this coming academic year. That's why I haven't talked about it. But it's on the radar screen. It's on the radar screen. Yes, glory and trumpets, says Kay. Absolutely, yes. Creative writing groups. And as I said, this is just the one example that we have right now. If there are other sort of special interest discussion areas that people want to have, people want to do, have a sort of a specific discussion area, for instance, for talking about conference papers. For instance, a lot of our students have, as they've gone through our program, have gone on to present papers at academic conferences, have gone on to publish articles in books and journals. We have. There was a really fun example of the recent Harry Potter collection of essays that was published. Was it last year that was published? That contained more than half of the essays in the book came out. Where one was written by Dr. Sturgis herself, and I think at least 4 others were written by students who had been in her Harry Potter class here at Signum. That kind of thing has been really wonderful. We've been getting a lot of really. I mean, you can't go to a conference nowadays. You go to a scholarly Tolkien conference. You can't go to one without hearing papers which have come from, some of them even from Mythgard Academy students, some from many from our Signum students. Many of our students have had that experience of joining our program and ending up within a few years' time being recognized by the scholars you have always admired, because they've heard of you and read your work. And I remember Chris Swank, our first ever graduate, our very first alumni, and who is now teaching with us. She's precepting her first class with us this summer. She'll be, I believe, precepting again with us in the fall. And I remember when she had that experience at MythCon last year. Anyway, so yeah, it's been yeah, exactly, Kay. You can't throw a Tolkien conference lanyard without hitting a Signum student. Absolutely. Yes, Curtis. Several Signumites are at Taylor University this weekend at the Inklings conference there. Absolutely. In fact, Curtis, I just got a text earlier today from Serena Higgins, the chair of our department, who was texting me from the session in which Jen Raimundo, one of our students and also the lead of our institutional planning team, was delivering a paper, and she was like, "Jen's paper was so wonderful." So it's great. Yes, I mean you'll definitely run into that at pretty much any conference you go to. And yet, thank you, Curtis. Harry Potter for Nerds too. That was the collection that just came out. Yeah, that I was referring to. Anyway, okay. So that's an example of another area that's going to be going on. Also, here's another thing. class enhancement areas. So this is something that a lot of people have wanted, which we've never really had a place to support before, and that is places where people can do. We are interested in creating student-led discussions. So, for instance, one class for which this has been a particular question is our Beowulf translation seminar, which is coming up in the fall. Lots of people were sort of, well, they're like, I can't audit that. The people are asking if they could audit the class, and I'm like, no, you can't audit. There's no auditing, right? Because there's no lecture. In an audit, you normally, you listen to the lecture, but you don't take part in the discussion. There is no non-discussion. The translation seminar, it's a translation seminar. There's no lecture. It's all discussion. It's all small group preceptor sessions. That class is 100% preceptor session. So therefore, you can't audit it. So yeah, that's not really an option. And so, one of the things that we were thinking about, it's like, well, but we don't want to discourage people who want to follow along and kind of be a part. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a forum where people could kind of follow along, have students from the class kind of stopping in? Over time, a lot of this stuff is going to kind of grow over time. A lot of these things are sort of concepts right now. I'm not sure exactly kind of where they're going to go, but my sort of idea here, my vision for this, is that this is a place where many of our students, some of our MA students, could come in and be leading discussions, and so that auditors and interested people could be able to engage in more discussion and follow through, along with the classes as they go through. So Kate Neville says, student support is how I got through philology. We had Google meetings to help each other through homework. Yeah, exactly. It'd be really fun to have an area like that. And where others who are outside the class, but inside our community would want to kind of be able to sort of experience and follow along. So I would love that. But okay. So this is all great. Like places, ways in which not only mechanisms in, areas in which our students can connect with each other and but also areas in which they can pursue their interests together and really sort of enrich each other and everything. And that's all really great. But of course, there's an issue here, right? All through here, I've been talking about students, right? Our auditors and our credit students. But of course, our students aren't our whole community, right? There are other people who are very, very much a part of who Signum is and what we do, but who don't actually take our classes, right? Are not enrolled in our classes. What about the staff and the volunteers who work so hard to make all of this possible, right? Many of those are also students, but not all of them, right? What about those who love this stuff so much that they're willing to dedicate many, many hours a week to helping support it and make it happen, but they don't have time or money to take a class, right? What about our donors, right? To whom we owe the fact that we're still surviving and still in existence, right? Those people are our staff, our donors, and our students, you guys are Signum University, and the people who support Signum University with their finances, the people who've supported our fundraising campaigns, I am no less grateful to them than to our students. We rely so heavily upon that. It's a part of who we are and a part of what we do. We want to welcome people into our community. Once when you are that integral a part of our community, when you are that big a support to us, we want to there should be benefits to that. There should be advantages to that. You should be welcomed in because you're part of this school that you are helping to support and helping to build. So in the months to come, as we work, we're still kind of ironing this out. I'm not sure how long it's going to take in the couple weeks, couple months. I'm not sure until all of this stuff is fully operational, like the Death Star, except more friendly. Anyway, donors, staff, everybody's going to be invited also to be in the Community Hearth. And, so obviously some of the student-oriented areas are not going to be relevant, right? So, our donors, people who are just, fans and supporters of the institution and our programs, but aren't enrolled in our courses, are not going to really need access to the thesis support group, for instance, right? Really any of these sort of student support areas. So different people who are in different who are in different relationships with Signum are going to have access to different areas. And so basically, like for someone who's not a student at all, and therefore the student-specific information and support areas aren't relevant, that area will just kind of be invisible because they're not going to be, obviously they're not going to be a part of that. Yeah, exactly. Karita says, once a beloved supporter of Signum, always a beloved supporter of Signum. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we're gonna be inviting everybody to join us around the Community Hearth. Everybody involved. And we have a bunch of other areas which are really specially oriented towards our donors and our the enthusiastic supporters of our non-credit bearing programs like the Mythgard Academy. So, for instance, a couple things here. First of all, the Council of the Wise, which many of you have already been involved in, that's going to live here within, under the umbrella of the Community Hearth. It's not necessarily otherwise going to change. It always existed in Moodle. Now it exists in the Community Hearth as sort of part of this larger thing. We also want a place, again, people have often asked, is there a place where we can go to discuss, like people who are watching the Mythgard Academy videos asynchronously, or who are doing the reading, or even coming to it after the class is done? Is there a place where they could go to have more discussion? Have some student-led discussions. Do a hangout to talk about this last week's class or whatever. We want there to be opportunities for you guys to do that. So yeah, if you're a donor and a MythX supporter, then we'd love to invite you to some of these areas. And the classroom archives. This is basically, I'll talk about that a little bit more another day, I think. But basically the idea here, this is where people will be able to get access to our past classes, to what basically have been our course packs. And we haven't officially worked out all of the details of this yet, but I'm basically working on moving the course packs permanently and entirely here to the classroom archives within the Community Hearth. All of this, this is basically what the, and not all people will have access to all areas. Some are designed for students and student concerns. As I explained, some of them are, designed. We want to be able to reward our donors and to reward them in proportion to their generosity, as we've always liked to do. So larger donors are going to have more access to more areas than smaller donors. Basically, these areas within the Community Hearth are going to really form the heart of the sort of the mechanism for the donor reward system we're going to have moving forward. So there'll be lots of stuff there. Any questions about the Community Hearth or any of these programs or initiatives that we're developing inside here? Any questions about the Community Hearth before I move on to my third topic, as I've kept you very late already, and I have one more topic to discuss. It shouldn't be quite as long as the first two. Any last questions?